The very technological and digital things of the Industry 4.0 with a very ancient way of heating, that is wood burning in the house and direct warmth to the user, to the customer. And I like a lot about that, but the starting point is what we sell. We need to be very much aware of what our promise to the customer, what are we really selling to the user. And by focusing on this, then we can think about how to improve and enhance this kind of promise to the user using the digital technologies, those new technologies coming up with the Industry 4.0. So I always ask this very easy question: do you know what we are really selling? And most of the times everybody knows, yes, of course I know what we sell. Of course, I'm speaking about domestic appliances, small-scale domestic appliances, not talking about power plants, not talking about district heating, but domestic appliances. This is the context. But still, even though we think everybody to know what we are selling, just going a little bit more in deep on that, for sure we are selling a heating appliance. So that something is something that is supposed to heat the room. So we are measured, and our benchmark is the efficiency, yes, the emission, the amount of kilowatts we produce, the way we distribute the heat through the air, through the water, things like that. But remember, those are the same dimensions of a gas boiler or of a heat pump. This dimension of our applications doesn't make any difference between us and a gas boiler. So on those topics, we compete on the same things. But of course, there's something more than that. We are in the living room. We are in the most important room of the customer. The customer interacts with our products every day, at least just because we are in front of his eyes. So we need to be beautiful, we need to be usable, we need to be clean, we need to be coherent with the trend and with the taste of the customer in his house. And that is very, very important as well. Just to give you an idea, we could have stoves, we could have kitchens, we could have fireplaces. In all of these versions, and those are so many that it's only a matter of fantasy how you can make new products, new shapes, and provide different experiences to the user. And then there is the last dimension that's maybe the most important. I always say this: no engineers will ever suggest a customer to install a stove. I am an engineer. I've studied energy dimensioning for the house, so you make the calculation to see the energy need, and then you say, how would you satisfy this need? With which technology? And then solar panels, boiler, heat pump, etc. But no engineers tell you install a stove, install a pellet stove, install a fireplace. No one. But we have millions of users. And that's why, because those products provide something more than just heat and nice looking products in your living room. Those products give the possibility to the user to control his energy in his house, to be independent, to control the expenses. And this is a very strong feeling. Me personally, I basically have no time to spend at home, but I do have a pellet boiler, and every weekend I do clean it, I load the pellet in the big tank, etc., etc. And when I do it, I feel much better, because the energy is under my control. And this is very important to be aware of this, because thinking about any other kind of good in the market, there are not so many products that can give this kind of feeling to the user. And we have to leverage on this. We have a very big, let's say, coefficient of satisfaction on the users in the market, because they have chosen us. We are not pushy. We are pulled by the market, and we have to keep on understanding this is very important. So just to say everything with one word, what a stove is for the customer is a long-lasting experience for the user in his home. And I have written home and not house, because we are in the very most intimate part of the house. Okay, we are in the heart of the house. And just analyzing the words that we can there, you can take out all of those keywords, because when you speak about long-lasting, then long-lasting, oh, I need service, I need spare parts, the design has to be fair also for the next year and the next few years, the maintenance is important, and then the brand that gives me the grant that it will be there after 5 years, and things like that. Also for the user needs, it's a matter of interaction, word of mouth, satisfaction, independence, cost, accessibility. I say dirty hands, because when you clean it, you get dirty. But that's fine, because then you saved money, you saved energy. You are more green and whatever. And then home, which leads to a lot of other keywords around the world of your home. So I just say pin those things, because we will come back to those in a digital way afterwards, at the end of my presentation. So, let's now talk about, so it's clear what we sell. We sell a long-lasting experience for the customer in his home. Then let's talk about Industry 4.0. So, first of all, I'm not here to speak about that from an academical point of view, but I just want to highlight a couple of things that Marcus also has raised up. First of all, look at the evolution in terms of time. The first revolution took 2 centuries. The second, maybe less than one, then 50 years, and then now. So the length of those industrial revolutions is always shorter. It means that if we don't start now, in 5 to 6 years, it will be ended. There will be the 5th, or maybe the 6th already. Because those are even quicker, day by day. They're always quicker. Technology evolution is super quick. And another thing I want to focus your attention to is that if the first 3 revolutions were more on the factory, and so they were more focused on production, speeding up the production and things like that. Now, the keyword for me of the 4th industrial revolution is business. It's no more limited to the factory. It looks at the whole supply chain, the whole market, so the whole business. And what's Industry 4.0 about? Well, actually, I am really a technology geek. I like that since I was young, and I feel very lucky to be here in this time frame of the world evolution. So I could see from the first personal computer now up to those smartphones, which are much more powerful than desktop computers now. So what is about Industry 4.0? Basically, it's about the fact that we do have so many super powerful technologies which are available at a very low cost to everybody, for everybody. The real limit, it's not the budget. The limit of the Industry 4.0 for us as entrepreneurs, the limit is our capacity to understand which is the potential of the application of those technologies in our business. This is the real key factor. We have to imagine how those things could help our business. And the basic point is, if we don't know what all of those 10 or whatever, I didn't count them, all of those things are, if we don't understand the meaning of the single word, we have to study. And this is a must. If you don't know what augmented reality is, please go to Wikipedia, read it, study it, go to YouTube, read an application of this, because we need to understand what it is before we can imagine how to apply it to our business. And we have absolutely no time to go through all of those in deep. But write it down, the ones you don't know, or you don't know how could them be useful for you, because you have to study those. I repeat, I cannot explain all of those, but if you want later with questions, I will do it. Otherwise, I will take all of my time out of here. Anyway, Industry 4.0, as I said, is a matter of using those basic bricks of technologies and applying them to the business. And you may say, okay, how can I use this for the biomass business? You might use many of those for the factory, and you can read about that everywhere. But what I will speak about today is the application of those, not in the factory in terms of manufacturing, but in the business in terms of relation with the customer. And yes, this is the context. So as I said, there is this kind of equivalence. Stove or fireplace is a long-lasting experience for the user in his home. And let's go more in deep. What does it mean? It means that our business is a matter of providing information to the users before purchasing the product, selling the product to the user. The first step is 6 months, more or less, on average. The second step, sales, is 1 month, no more. But then our product is in the house of the customer for at least 10 years, at least. So we have a very long tail of the customer experience from which most of the business people in our field doesn't get any money, if not for spare parts. So we do focus every time on proposing and selling, but we forget about the fact that the product will stay in the house for 10 years. And that is a big area of improvement of the business of our companies. I'm sure not many of us are really focusing on that mainly. But if you think about telco, cable TV, or banks also, they do not only now, they are moving their focus from new customers to existing customers to increase the loyalty to the services they provide. So we have to think about the services we can provide in this long tail. One recommendation. When we think about our companies and the market, there is a very big decision we have to take. And the decision is, who is our customer? If our customer is the dealer, then you have a kind of strategy. If our customer is the end user, you have another strategy. Our company is a business-to-business company. We do not invoice end users. So it's supposed to be that our customer is the dealer or the DIY brand or whatever. But it's not true. It's not true. Our customer, our strategy is that we don't want the user to say, I've gone to Leroy Merlin to buy a product. I want our customers to say, I go and buy a Palazzetti stove. It's the decision of many companies, and in our opinion, it's impossible not to go in this direction. Just think about the people of the distribution and also in the food, they are all making their own private brand to apply to the products. Think about the food. Every food chain, we see it every day in Italy, every food chain, supermarkets, let's say, they do have their own private label on products. Why? Because customers do not have the brand of Leroy Merlin in their house every day, but they have the stove every day in front of their eyes. After 5 years, 6 years, they might forget when they have purchased the product, but they remember about the product they have because it's in front of their eyes. And the same is for food and whatsoever. So you get in love with a brand, you don't get in love with a distribution channel. Even especially because the distribution channels now are so many. You can buy in a physical shop, you can buy in an e-commerce shop, you can buy from wherever, from the smartphone, which is of course a digital shop, but it's a different user experience. So the user now is going through all the channels. And think about yourself. You might say, okay, I still buy a dress in a physical shop, but maybe you will never buy a smartphone anymore in a physical shop. Or you buy some products from digital and some products from physical, or you could do both. Okay, so we are, let's say, cross-channel. We are used to use every channel. And for a company, it's very important to be in all the channels. But if you have a brand, if you want to have a brand, you need to tell the same story to the customer on every channel. So the multi-channel evolution is going more on an omni-channel direction for brand companies. It's super important for a company to tell the same story on every channel. And the reason is because the user goes on every channel. 70% of the sales starts on the web. getting information about what you're going to purchase, okay, from the internet. So we need to be focused on those. And when I said I am a B2B company, but actually it's not true. If you map within your companies how many touch points you already have with the customers and users, you will be surprised. I mean, we did it in our company. We said, okay, yes, we do have a website with a form where you can contact us directly. We do have a public email. We have a telephone number for toll-free. We do have social media. We do have an app. We do have a landing page. We said, wow, all of those channels are generating leads of end users, not of dealers. And so it's impossible to get rid of the direct contact with the users. And users now are looking for the direct contact with the companies. I mean, you can tweet it to the Pope. Why shouldn't you be able to ask a question to Palazzetti? It's like that. So that's why I say we need to realize that the market is calling us and we have to answer to the market. And so we have to go more close to the end user. And then I tried to map all of our services in the different phases of the, let's say, user experience. And what I want to talk to you about is one of the most important ones in the tail phase, in the final phase, this of the, let me see, of the 10 years. Because, okay, we do a lot of things before selling, advertising, website, whatsoever. Something a little bit also in the sell phase, but that's more for the dealers. But then what do we do in the next 10 years? Okay? I want to highlight one point. I've written CRM, 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 CRM everywhere. CRM stands for Customer Relationship Management. It's mainly a software that helps us to deal with this big amount of contacts of people out there. Because you can't think about understanding the need of every customer if you don't have a software that helps you doing that. Because they are too many. Simple. So you need somebody that collects them in clusters, helps you addressing them the right message, etc., etc. when they need. And this sounds pretty much digital. So please remember, if you have to choose a CRM software, not to go the old way. The thing, you see this one on your right, it's on my left, so it should be on your left. This CRM software follows the process from the campaign down to the invoice. But the invoice, it's not the end of the story. It's the beginning of the story for the customer. It's the beginning of the story. The invoice is the beginning of the story. It's not the end. This is a very strong message. So a good CRM does not end with the invoice, but ends, we say it should end when the customer purchases another product. Okay, because the product is at the end of life. So take care of this. So we talk about Internet of Things. Why do we talk about Internet of Things? Because Internet of Things is something that starts when the product starts working in the house of the customer. It's not something you do before, it's something you do at the end, thinking the old way. As when I have sold the product, then the user starts using and interacting with the product through an app, for example. And in fact, we have developed this app, and this is our experience, of course, I'm bringing to you. I think that almost everybody has developed an app. If you don't have an app, you're out. So everybody has an app. But the understanding of what can come from adding an app to the customer and to the company is the most important part. So when we have developed the app, we said we need to have something in the store because the real reason why we developed the app was users are getting used to interact with their products through the smartphone. A stove is a super interactive product, so interaction, we need to give the opportunity to the users to interact with the stove with the smartphone. Because it's what always in their pocket. They might wish to turn it on before being home, adding warmth. I mean, we are surrounded by smart thermostats, which are supposed to be linked to to an energy source. We do have an energy source, we want it to be smart. That was the idea. But soon we have understood that the app is just the top of the iceberg. To enable full power, what an app can give to the user, it's required to develop a kind of architecture underneath, which is using exactly the bricks of the industry 4.0. And here is where I close the loop, because you see, cloud computing, Internet of Things, big data storage, multi-protocol APIs to deal with the development of the software, predictive maintenance, and user-driven NPD stands for new product development. It means it's the big concept of pro-users. The users influences the product development. If not, even the user can customize its own product. And I will show you how that is possible. Using the technology, it's already there. Those are the bricks again, just to highlight you that for that platform we use system integration, because we have integrated the user database of the app with our CRM, so we know who has enabled the product, and so we can provide services to those people. Internet of Things, of course. Cybersecurity, of course, it's a must. It's something you have to take care of in this world where everything is connected. There are very many weak points, so you need to be very updated. Cloud computing is necessary to do this, and big data, and I will give you a hint about big data now. So, just to give you a couple of examples of how powerful those tools can be for the users and for the company. This is an example of a customer. Those are 2 days. Every single bar is 1 hour, so we have 48 hours of usage of the product. Here you can see the dark blue line is the set point of the room. As you can see, this customer changes the set point of the room. It means it's not one of those, they just leave it there. Users are clustered in at least 3 big clusters. One of those clusters is the super interactive people. Those who are always touching the panel, changing things, and turning on, etc. This guy is like this. He's always changing the temperature level. The light blue is the actual room temperature. So if the light blue is close to the dark blue, it means that the stove has reached the target temperature. So everything is fine. The green line here, horizontal, is the maximum power the stove is allowed to burn. The stove goes from 1 to 5. This one is at 3. It's very typical. The customer installs a stove and then power is down. Powers it down. It means that it limits the stove. They buy a 12 kilowatt stove, but they put the power down to 3. It means that the actual maximum power the stove can run is roughly 6 kilowatts. Okay? That is typical, because reducing the power means saving money. You know that at power 3, you don't burn more than 1 bag a day. That's all. Very simple. You have under control the consumption of fuel, the cost of the energy. And of course, the stove cannot go more than 3. That's the limit. You see here, in the middle, where the light blue line is very close to the dark blue, that means that the room temperature has reached the target, that the stove, which yellow is the actual real power the stove is burning, okay? The stove just modulates down. It says, okay, everything is fine, I don't have to burn too much, I stay down. But then, at a certain point, the user says, oh, I want 23 degrees. So the stove should start powering up a little bit more, because you have to gain maybe 3 degrees. Okay? But look what happens. The stove doesn't reach the target temperature. Why? Because even going full power, but not full power, full potential of the stove, but the maximum power allowed by the user, it cannot reach the target. Okay? So, give me the time, Marcos. Okay. Okay. So, the point is, the user is limiting the stove, and he is not supposed to be satisfied because it doesn't reach the target. Here we can give suggestions. We can tell, listen, you're asking for a temperature, but you're limiting me. Would you like to get the temperature, or do you prefer to keep on saving money? So we can give advices on a better use of the stove. Another point, this user is using the stove 24 hours, which is good because it gives continuity to the heat contribution to the house. But look at this guy. This one, it's another example, very quick, is turning the stove on and off. Only for, it lets it work only for 4 hours. But in those 4 hours, the stove does not reach the target. This is a water heating appliances, so the target is 65 degrees. You see, working on, off, on, off, on, off in such a short time with the power limit, because also here you see there is the power limit to 3, the stove could go up to 5. With the power limit, it doesn't reach the target, and this will be an unhappy customer. He will say the stove doesn't work. But it's not true. It's the way he is using it, maybe the way it's installed. But for sure we can do much better things than having a 10 years long lasting bad experience for a customer. This is the area of intervention in which we can work and improve. And this can also lead to the improvement of the product, because if you know that lighting and switch on and switch off phases are very frequent, you could optimize the product on that. And that leads to lower emission, better energy usage, etc., etc., etc. The last slide is this. The question is, but how do you feel about where do you feel in the typical maturity model of the big data usage? Because for you to know, all of those stoves, we have more than 5,000 now giving us data every 10 minutes. We have a huge amount of data because we started in September 2014. And we have a huge amount of data, and from that amount of data we can understand the usage of our products, where to improve it, etc., etc. According to this maturity model, we feel to be just only in the phase of the business optimization. That means we use data and optimize the product, but we are not yet in the phase of the data monetization, which means we use this data and maybe we can take out money out of it, because somebody else might be interested on how much energy is produced. Just think about pellet. I will just leave you about this. What if I could tell to a pellet producer which is going to be the consumption in a very precise way for the next 15 to 20 days, linking my data to the weather data? I will have a provision on the consumption that is very precise. But also for the government, I can tell you exactly how much renewable energy we are producing from every single stove in the field, in a very precise way. That's renewable energy accounting. Those are just two scenarios that could really lead to what is called the business metamorphosis, or new business model that is the typical way out of the Industry 4.0. Thank you very much for your time.